Rise up!
This is the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root from CardsWire.com, USA Today's NFL Wire site. That covers, of course, your Arizona Cardinals. And for our preview show, it is episode 702. Seth Cox from RevengeOfTheBirds.com, SB Nation's Arizona Cardinals site, joins me as my co-host, as always, as we get to talk about the Cardinals. As we're doing 3 shows really packed together. So we just did our review show of the game against the 49ers. We're doing a preview show, preview picks and predictions and prop bets. And I will also have Seahawks Wires Cole Musgrove on for an opponent preview. And we've got the Seattle Seahawks coming to town Thursday night at State Farm Stadium, kicking off at 5:15 p.m. Arizona time, 8:15 Eastern time on Prime Video. And 2-2-1 teams, but 2-2-1 teams that have a very different vibe, don't they?
Yeah, I talked about it today in our confidence poll. It's really interesting how the same record and be so completely different in terms of vibes, right? Like you look at
the losses are to the same team. Like
right.
It's been
and the Cardinals
beat the
And the Cardinals was theoretically a better loss, right? Like played a tighter game, so yeah, all of that is interesting to kind of follow around and things of that nature. But, it's all about the vibes. And that's the biggest thing coming into this game. The Seahawks, the vibes are positive. Like he says, lose to the 49ers in game 1, come out, win a game against the Steelers that was closer than the score indicated, right? 31-17, but there was the botched kick return by Caleb Johnson that resulted in a Seahawks touchdown that really kind of changed the landscape of that game, made it a 10-point game, early in the fourth quarter. And so when you look at it from that perspective, it was an interesting game. And then you have last week where they just come out and absolutely blitz the New Orleans Saints, right? And they just kind of put up big numbers, play well, have more really, successful special teams. They had a 96-yard punt return. They got 4 Jason Myers field goals, 3 Jason Myers field goals. Like it was, don't get me wrong, a 44-13 butt whooping, but like there was a lot of things that went right for the Seahawks in different ways. And so when you look at it from that they're an interesting team, but again, vibes matter, right? Like coming off a win where it's 44-13 over a team the Cardinals only beat, by a touchdown and things of that nature. And then the Cardinals coming off a loss, like all of that is just, there are just more positives right now about the Seahawks despite the same record.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And now, in fairness, they look better. They look better on both sides of the ball. Well, they look better definitely offensively as they put up 44 and 31. Now, granted, you said what a weird play. They just recover a kickoff in the end zone for a touchdown. Very odd. But the fact of the matter is that Sam Darnold's been solid. He's playing very effectively, and he darn near led them to a win in week 1. He got Nick Bosa down in the red zone right at the end of the game, but after Brock Purdy threw a touchdown pass to put San Francisco in the lead. They went down the field. They've been like everything about the Seahawks has been pretty good. The defense has been good. The offense has been good. Sam Darnold has been good. Jackson Smith and Jigba has turned into a star. So there's honestly, there is a lot to like about this team. Like they gave up nearly 400 yards to the 49ers, but now against the Steelers 267, against the Saints 284, they forced turnovers in every single game. However, they are turnover prone because they've taken the ball away 5 times and they've turned the ball over 5 times. And so they're a little bit loose with the football early in the season, but they are a team that's got a lot going on for them.
They are, and you look at it too, like there's some, much like the Cardinals, there's some reality to their wins, right? The Pittsburgh Steelers are not a good football team. That's all, become apparent. They're not the Pittsburgh Steelers of old. Yes, they beat the New England Patriots on Sunday, 21-14, but I mean, they had 203 total yards of offense, but they forced 5 turnovers on defense, although they gave up 369 yards. And the Steelers are giving up over nearly 400 yards a game on offense. They're 28th, right? And so that game the week before by the Seahawks, again, that's an interesting win. I mean, it's not what you would call like a signature win by any means. And then we know what the Saints are. Although, man, the NFL's weird, right? Like a week after the Cardinals beat the Panthers and it looks like a bad win, the Panthers go beat the brakes off the Atlanta Falcons.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
I was reading somebody, I can't remember who said it, so I apologize in advance for not remembering. But do you know how hard it is to be shut out in the NFL anymore? Like, really how hard it is? And the Falcons got shut out by the Panthers at home on top of everything. Or no, they were, sorry, it was the Panthers were home. But so, those are all interesting things to kind of look at. And you look at the Seahawks, and like you said, Sam Darnold's playing good football, but it's a different type of football, something that you and I've talked about and that we would prefer probably to see a little more of. And that's they're very aggressive in what they're doing in the passing game. Their run game really hasn't taken off, although, they do have one game over 100 yards rushing, but realistically, they're playing the brand of football that I think a lot of Cardinals fans were hoping to see the Cardinals play in terms of coming out this year. They're 12th in passing offense, 21st in rushing offense, but 29th in rushing yards per attempt. Like, not great. But then you look at the other side of it, right? Then they're elite against the run. So it's going to be the movable force against the what is it? The irresistible object, or whatever the saying is, because the Cardinals can't run the ball, and the Seahawks don't allow teams to run the ball. So that, as we get into this, that'll be something to watch.
Oh, and that, remember last season thing that turned with the addition of Ernest Jones, because they were a terrible run defending team. They let go of the linebackers they had, and they got Ernest Jones, and Ernest Jones has been fantastic. But I think what's even more impressive, Byron Murphy, their first round pick a year ago, looks like a first round pick. 2.5 sacks, 14 tackles, 5 quarterback hits in the first 3 games of the season, when Murphy last year as a rookie looked very ordinary. And they've got 5 guys on that defensive interior: Byron Murphy, Leonard Williams, and Jaron Reed, who all have 5 quarterback hits so far. And so the defensive interior Mike McDonald is putting together. He's doing really well. He's doing in Seattle what he did in Baltimore, and they haven't given up more than 17 points yet this season. That's to go with the fact that they are fifth in scoring, they're second in scoring defense, which is early in the season. That looks really good. And I think for me, with the impressiveness about this is that Sam Darnold is continuing to play well, because I openly questioned if he was an upgrade over Geno Smith. And thus far, he has, like, I felt at best he was a lateral younger move than Geno, but perhaps he has a little bit higher ceiling, because Geno's been pretty good. And Geno has become a pretty dang good quarterback. And Seth, when you liked him coming out of college, it took a while, but he proved you right. And it seems like everybody has to get out of New York to kind of thrive.
Yeah, and you look at it, and what's interesting about Sam Darnold is that he is, a very risk-taking quarterback, right? So
it's Carson Palmer, man. He's Carson Palmer.
It really is a great, comparison, Jess, because you're talking about a guy that doesn't really care if he turns the ball over. He's like, whatever. Which is just so different than what we're used to seeing in terms of all of football, right? Like, that's just not something that we see anymore. But he's playing at that high level, and what's interesting is that you've got guys that are kind of throwing back to what worked before, and that is a guy that can take big shots consistently and then not have to worry about the mistakes, because you're going to give him an opportunity to make up for it, right? So, you kind of look at his season so far, 4 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. It's not like we're talking about a guy that's, lighting the world on fire, right? Like, 4 touchdowns, same as Kyler, 2 interceptions, one more than Kyler, but he's playing at an outrageously aggressive level. And after last year, where he, went 14-3 and had over 4,300 yards and 35 touchdowns, like you said, he's kind of backing that up at a different type of pace, right? Like, last year was a lot of volume, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but you look at that 24 Minnesota.
That Minnesota offense was cooking, and so he had volume opportunities too.
Right, and then
so many weapons. They ran the ball really well. They got great receivers. They protected well, and so they had volume offense.
Whereas this year, he's only thrown the ball 74 times, right? And so he's doing it at a much more efficient rate than what we saw last year. The other thing with that is that when you have games like he has had, and you look at his week to week, right? And that's kind of what's really interesting is he had an average game in week 1, right? 16 of 23 for 150 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Kind of a nondescript game. Part of the reason they didn't win, right? And then in week 2, we talked about the Pittsburgh defense. Like, they're not, like, they're forcing turnovers at a standard Pittsburgh defensive rate, but they just give up yardage, 295 yards passing, 2 touchdowns to go with those 2 interceptions. But then last week against New Orleans, who just was outclassed. I mean, he only threw the ball 18 times for 218 yards and the 2 touchdowns, but like a 12.1 yards per attempt average. That's a wild number. And so that'll be kind of what's to watch. Last year he was at 7.9. This year though he's at 9 even. And so like was that
it's not sustainable. It's not going to be sustainable.
So that'll be what's interesting, because the Cardinals, defense has been, as we talked about, death by 1,000 cuts. It hasn't been big plays. They've ideally kept everything in front of them and forced teams to go the long, hard road to score points. And so that'll be what's interesting this week is, are we going to have a game where what breaks, right? Do the Seahawks maintain that aggressive down the field type of thing, or are they more willing to take their time, dink and dunk, and kind of move the ball down the field? What's really interesting to me, Jess, is that Kenneth Walker's outperformed all Cardinals running backs. So I don't want this to like come off like sour grapes or anything, but I mean, 88 attempts for 288 yards. That's 3.3 yards per carry, right? Like, how, as a team, can you not run the football efficiently, but you're still able to get explosive plays? And I'm genuinely asking, because that's what we've kind of been wondering with the Cardinals, is like their pass game is so much built on quicks and getting the ball out because they can't run the ball right now, that how are you able to get the ball and push the ball down the field so efficiently when you literally just, like, there's no run threat? And Kenneth Walker having a way better season than any Cardinals running back. So I don't mean that in the negative connotation it's coming out in, but that's just, a genuine curiosity from me.
But it's because the other guys aren't producing. Like, he's averaging over 4 yards a carry, but Zach Charbonnet 2.1, George Holani 2.7. Like, yeah, it's he's doing well, and everyone else is getting stuffed.
But I mean, even 4 yards a carry now, like, we'd be like, that's just not very efficient. And again, like you said, it's clearly the best of either team. Well, I mean, technically Trey Benson's averaging 6 yards per carry, but like
2 runs,
yeah,
and Benson has been boom or bust. But if you're as a lead back, you're going to have to be far more consistent than that. Otherwise, it's going to be 3 and out, touchdown, 3 and out, field goal, because you can't sustain that. Now, I think what the difference is that the receivers they have, well, partially, I'm going to say that probably Clinton Kubiak's scheme and philosophy lends itself, and especially the mentality of Sam Darnold, because you've got receivers, very, like, an elite receiver who's become an elite with another. The Ohio State receivers, Jack Smith and Jigma, fantastic, and Mika Igbukwe, who's looking, oh my gosh, this year. Marv's looking the most disappointing so far, but you've got Jackson Smith and Jigba and Cooper Kupp, who are as reliable as possible, and they're types of guys who will create separation. That's kind of their specialty. They create separation, and that's what you need. Like, Darnold can trust them, and so he's able to push that ball down the field and get the ball to them. And then I don't know what their yards after the catch situation is. Is it pushing the ball down the field, or is it partially yards after the catch?
Yeah, I mean, so his ADOT's pretty, aggressive still. I'll double check that right now as we talk, but like, one of the things with a lot of these teams is that they're, as we talked about in our previous show, is like they're not risk adverse, and I gotta say the Cardinals are very risk adverse, as we've talked about.
Yes.
Like, they're like, hey, let's not have anything happen. Yeah, so I mean, his A dot right now, so average depth of target's 9.3 yards. Like that's absurd, dude. Like
Throwing to the sticks. That's amazing.
right, but he's throwing to the sticks every play. So so he's trying, like every throw is a first down throw. Um yeah, and so that's the hard part, and that's what you kind of have to look at. And you look at his career, that you said it, he's Carson Palmer, right? That's what he does. He tries to push the ball down the field consistently. It wasn't until last year that it really became something that he could do with success, and now it's showing up again this year at a good rate. And like I said, last week was absurd. 11.5 yards was his average depth of target. Like that's an absurd that's just an absurd way to throw the ball. Like it doesn't happen anymore in today's game. And I know people will be like, well, that's because Kyler. No, like if you just look by the position, it just doesn't really happen that much anymore in the game, because the game's built so much on not getting beat deep. So like you said, the Seahawks, I don't know why my brain was stuck on the 49ers. The Seahawks were, are really content on pushing the ball, or intent, I guess, pushing the ball down the field consistently and saying like, hey, let's go ahead and force you to defend us. And you look at all season and things of that nature. One of the things that you look at with just this season is you've got a lot of guys that are in that 6 to 8 range. That's that Kyler's been in for a long time. I mean, Murray, Tua, Drake May, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts. Like the goal is Jared Goff. Sorry, and like it goes up. Brock Purdy, and then the other ones that aren't outside of Lamar, it's really not surprising, right? You got Jordan Love, you got Justin Herbert, you got Darnold, you got Geno, you got Russell Wilson, and you got JJ McCarthy. And so the difference being that outside of Herbert and Lamar, like none of them are producing at really that high of a level. Like Love's doing pretty well, right? But for the most part, it's not going that way. And so what it comes down to is that there's no right or wrong way to skin a cat. You look at this season, touchdown leaders, right? Jared Goff, his A dot is 7.2. Caleb Williams, his A dot's 8.8. Aaron Rodgers has 7 touchdowns. His A dot's 5.8. Like, and then you got Lamar at 9, and his A dot's 10.4. So like there's a different way to go about it and a different way to have success in it. And right now, Darnold's one of the few that's doing it at a high level, throwing the ball vertically and pushing the ball vertically. And I think that Carson Palmer comparison, whether you've been thinking about it or just came to you, that's a really accurate one.
Next on the Rise of Seahawks podcast, the Best of Cardinals Talk on the Web. Let's move on to this contest, the game on Thursday, keys, matchups, and more. That's coming next on Rise of Seahawks. We're back on the Rise of Seahawks podcast, the Best of Cardinals Talk on the Web, talking about Week 4, Cardinals versus Seahawks at State Farm Stadium. What the Cardinals will need to do to win the game, what matchups are going to be important. And the first thing we have to note is that this is going to be the Trey Benson game. It's going to be Trey Benson and Amari DeMarcado as the guys at running back. It will be a Greg Dortch game because Zay Jones is in concussion protocol, and there's no way to get out of concussion protocol when you don't practice like you do on a Thursday game. And we might be looking at Josh Fryer as the starting left tackle, or Jonah Williams at left tackle, Josh Fryer at right tackle, because Paris Johnson and Kelvin Beachum both have knee injuries, and their status is unknown. What we do know is that they signed Demontre Jacobs, a tackle off their practice squad, which suggests that they needed a backup tackle, which means Josh Fryer. Oh, more injuries. So they're going to be. That's going to be an interesting way to go. What do you think is going to be kind of key number one? What's going to be the most important factor for Arizona to be able to slow or even compete with Seattle?
That's the biggest thing I'm curious about, is how they go about this. So, they've done a wonderful job this year of really stopping the run at a higher level, something that we didn't know if they were going to be able to do. They are struggling against the pass, but again, I think a lot of that comes down to excuse me, sorry, comes down to just how much we're seeing them in or be up in games, right? Like they're up.
Yeah. Well, that was the case on definitely in the first 2 weeks, is that they got up and they just started. They played their basic prevent. They like prevent-ish, just dropping guys back and letting people dink and dunk down the field, which, like we said in our last show, that's kind of a bad plan when all you need is a field goal, like they did against the 49ers, because it lets them get down the field in the field goal range.
Right. And so you just kind of look at it, and so I think obviously the Seahawks pass offense versus the Cardinals pass defense is interesting, but to me it becomes more about who continues to defend the run at a high level. The Cardinals are 16th in rushing offense, the Seahawks 21st, but the Cardinals are fourth in rushing defense. But again, I think, I'll double check, but I think they've, faced like the third or something like that, or fourth least amount of rushing attempts. Their yards per attempt average is top 10 too. So, but then they face literally the most passes thrown of any team in the NFL. And so I guess the yardage being 30th, right? 30th against the pass technically is not a bad thing.
No, not necessarily.
It just goes back to what we've said. They're comfortable allowing a lot of pass yards in exchange for chewing clock, kicking field goals, and things of that nature. Two of the top 5 scoring defenses in the NFL. The biggest difference being that the Seahawks are top 5 in scoring offense, while the Cardinals are 19th in scoring offense. The Cardinals are have the takeaway plus. Again, they've got they've committed 1 turnover all year. So their turnover ratio is +2, whereas the Seahawks, again, they're more risk taking, and they're willing to go throw the ball down the field. They're willing to put the ball in harm's way a little more. So those are all going to be interesting things, because to me it really comes down to, can either team run the ball well? Because genuinely, just like the Seahawks average 219 yards passing per game, they're gonna get 219 yards passing, if not more, against this Cardinals defense. I mean, the Cardinals haven't held anybody to a low passing yardage total, because they want you to dink and dunk and work your ways down the field. So I think, to that aspect, that's going to be one of the big things to watch in this one.
2 things have been a factor in the last couple of games against the Seahawks, and one is how much duress Murray is under, and then turnovers. those have been the bugaboos against Seattle. Like we saw last year, the Leonard Williams takeover, and I guess that's going to be kind of matchup number one is how does the defensive interior Yelda Froholt and and more Isaiah Adams match up against Leonard Williams, who was just absolutely a monster against them in that first game last season. That becomes for me the matchup number one, because you've got to and the way that the offensive interior, because Evan Brown, Isaiah Adams not played well this year, and so the blend of how, I guess it's honestly, it's not just Leonard Williams, it's going to be Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy and Jaron Reed, because those guys have been very productive. They've been very disruptive through the first 3 games of the year.
Well, what's interesting is, the Cardinals are they're similar in terms of giving up pressures. The Cardinals have given up 35 pressures on the season. The Seahawks 30. I know 5 is quite a bit of a difference, but you look at it, again, the Cardinals are one of the lowest passing attempt teams in the NFL. The Seahawks aren't far behind them, though, to be fair. I mean, it's just not, neither team looks at the passing game as the key to their offense. And so that's going to be something like, who creates more pressures? Who's the one that's able to force these quarterbacks to speed up and to really, have a tough time, because they've both been playing at a very consistent and high level in terms of accuracy and things of that nature. From there, it just becomes the question of who is able to get home more. When you look at the Cardinals this year, their pressure percentage isn't, I guess we would say, elite yet. They're very, again, they're incredibly comfortable kind of allowing teams to go short, to go quick. They're looking at things through the shade or the lens of where are we most vulnerable and how do we get beat. And the Seahawks and Mike McDonald are kind of the opposite of that, right? They're like, how do we force this team into pressures? How do we force our opponent into making mistakes and watch, or kind of, playing to our strength, and we are forcing the issue, where the Cardinals are a little more comfortable, for whatever reason, allowing the game to come to them. So again, it just comes down to, like, what is the right way to go about it? Can the Cardinals, especially with a banged up offensive line and what has been not, I mean, the pass protection hasn't been horrid, not like the run blocking, right? Like, the run blocking for the Cardinals has been atrocious. The pass protection hasn't been awful. Would you not agree with that?
No, it's been pretty all right. There's been some pressure, a little bit of pressure on Murray, but he's actually been pretty good about his pocket awareness overall. But yeah, that's
so that'll be a big thing. And then again, I mean, Jess, are they going to be able to run the ball, man? I mean, let's just be honest. The Cardinals' run blocking grades are bad. And so when you have really bad run blocking grades and you're not able to generate pressure movement consistently, I mean, it's going to be an issue, and that's going to be one of those situations where we'll see how this kind of flips. But right now, they're not a good run blocking team and they're facing, a top 2, maybe 4 run defense in the NFL. So that's going to be a matchup to watch. And then Jackson Smith and Jigba, nobody stopped him all season, right? Like you talked about it earlier. Nobody has stopped him. So is a beat up Cardinals secondary gonna be able to stop him? I mean, he's averaging. Here's the crazy thing, Jess. They're so productive and they score so many points. Sam Darnold has 4 passing touchdowns. Kenneth Walker only has 3 rushing touchdowns. And I say only because it's like your top 5 in points scored, but nobody's scoring a lot of touchdowns for this team. It's because they've, created a lot of special teams touchdowns. They've really done it in different ways. I mean, Torrey Horton, I think he's a second-year player. I can't remember off the top of my head. Has 2 receiving touchdowns. Then Smith and Jigba has 1. AJ Barner has 1. And then again, rushing touchdowns. Kenneth Walker has 3. Charbonnet has 1. Like, it's not like their 30 points per game are coming from this greatest show on turf aerial assault, or they're just like running, gashing guys like Derrick Henry. It's been kind of a lot of luck and luck's.
They've got 10 touchdowns in their 3 games. They got 4 rushing, 4 receiving. They got Horton. He's a rookie, by the way. Horton had a return for a touchdown, punt return for a touchdown. Helani recovered the kickoff in the end zone for a touchdown.
Right.
So it's and honestly, who's been their most productive scorer thus far overall? It's the rookie Horton. He's got 2 receiving touchdowns and a punt return for a touchdown so far this season.
Yeah, I mean, Smith and Jigba is doing his best Trey McBride impersonation, right? I mean, 327 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. So it's just interesting, man. Like it's a really interesting game because what the keys are, right? Like can this team run the ball against an elite run defense? Can this
gotta force a turnover? They got to force turnovers. They
can't.
Yeah.
Well,
and take the ball away.
The other thing, but again, it's tough because you look again at what happened, and San Francisco, Brock Purdy threw 2 interceptions, Aaron Rodgers threw 2 interceptions, and then Spencer Rattler threw an interception.
Or that's why the defense has to create takeaways, because Seattle takes the ball away, so you've got to at least match that.
And so that's the thing, is my concern with this game. If I'm being completely honest, my biggest concern with this game is that we've now seen that even in big games, that this coaching staff is so risk averse that they would rather, kind of, let's just keep running into a brick wall. Let's just throw these quick swings, these screens, these quick outs. Let's not push the ball down the field. We're up, or it's tied. We don't need to push the ball down the field. And so that's my concern, is that it's a similar game to what we saw on Sunday, where it's a lot of we'll just force them to punt, and we'll punt if we need to, and like we're not worried about getting the ball vertical. We're gonna because they force so many turnovers, we don't want to put our defense in a bad position. Like it's a weird thing to me, but I do understand it coming from a defensive coach, right? Like it unfortunately makes a lot of sense that it's like, oh no, I trust my defense, like just don't screw it up offense type of thing. And so that'll be what's interesting to watch, because if they do get behind, we've seen that they're more than capable of pushing the ball vertical. They're more than capable of throwing the ball with a lot of efficiency. So we'll see what happens.
Coming next on the Rise of Sierra podcast, Special Cardinals Talk and Web. Let's move to the final segment where we talk picks, predictions, and give us some prop bets that we like. That's coming next on Rise of Sea Red. We're back on the Rise of Seared podcast. Best our Cardinals talk on the web as we hit the prediction part of this show. The Cardinals were actually 1-point favorites to start the week. That has since shifted. They were 1-point favorites on the spread, but it was even. They were a pick 'em on the money line. That has shifted slightly in favor of the Seahawks, who are now -115 on the money line and -1 with the spread. Guess what? The public significantly favors the Seahawks. They're picking 69% of the handle is going on the Seahawks to win outright, and 73% of the spread bets are on the Seahawks to cover. And then, of course, the over/under with the total, you've got 43.5 as a set, and 75% say it's going to hit the over. If this game doesn't get out of hand, right? Like this could be I could see this getting ugly, but I also, if the Cardinals are competitive in this game, it's going to be another mucky game. I'm 100% convinced this is going to be another mucky game if the Cardinals are competitive. And I'd like to think that they're going to come out and compete in this game. They're at home on a Thursday night, coming off a very disappointing end to last game. What we do know is that the Cardinals tend to bounce back. And so I want to say that the Cardinals are going to sneak away with an ugly win and say it's going to be 20-19 Cardinals in this one.
By the way, I was almost perfectly accurate with my prediction outside of they covered. So, you've talked about it quite a bit. Good teams win, great teams cover. The Cardinals covered. They should have won and covered, but
yes, they should have.
But you look at it, this is a game that's going to be ugly, man. I really do think so. And I see the Cardinals falling to 2-2. I think it's going to be a lot of hand wringing and a lot of, the sky is falling, but it's just, they're in such a bad spot physically right now. Unfortunately, I think they're going to end up losing this one. And I'll say it's a 21-20 Seahawks win.
Now we go to some of the props. So we both like the under for this game. We think it's going to be we think it's going to be one of those years where Cardinals fans are going to have a hard time watching the Cardinals play.
Yeah. Here's an interesting thing, Jess. Is there any rushing props for the Seahawks right now for you?
Honestly, there's not. It's just Sam Darnold.
Yeah, so the Trey Benson, Kyler Murray, Emari Demercado, all on there for the Cardinals on FanDuel, and as Jess said, Sam Darnold. So I don't know if there is an issue, a concern with Charbonnet. I mean, he was full in practice today. I genuinely don't know.
Was Charbonnet inactive in that game against? I don't remember.
He must have been, yeah. But I mean, Kenneth Walker, why wouldn't Walker? I mean, he's not on the injury report. Yeah, I'm just spitballing, but
which is weird because they got the receiving props, they got kicking props, they got the passing props. It's just they don't have the rushing props for the Seahawks.
Seahawks. Interesting thing when those do come up, just to take a peek at. We were talking about Kenneth Walker and his 4.2 yards per carry average. Here's the deal on that. He had 20 yards against the 49ers and 38 yards on 16 carries against the Saints. So his one game against the Steelers is doing a lot of heavy lifting for his total for the year. And so, like, in comparison, the Steelers are giving up. Now, I kind of always discount the games against teams like the Jets with Justin Fields, right? But you look at the Seahawks, game, and then the Patriots game, they give up 117 and 119 yards rushing. So the Steelers, again, their defense is not what it has been in years past. Kenneth Walker, against the Cardinals, I don't love any of his rushing props unless it's like 45.5. Like, I genuinely would just stay away from it. Trey Benson, I'm not touching 60.5 with a 10-foot pole. I don't know how you feel, but like, there's a 0% chance I'm betting that right now.
Right. Yeah. I honestly, what I do like is the longest rush. I think for Murray, he's got longest rushes over 12.5 yards, and I think he's good for one of those a game where he's got a.
I would agree.
And I do like that. And then,
are we riding the Smith and Jigba train, man? Like, is that just something that you take advantage of until they make it so untenable you can't bet it anymore? I mean, 107 yards per game is just ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, it's only at 80.5. Like, I guess, like, you've got to go. You've got to. Don't you kind of have to
right?
do the over and ladder it to 100 and get the plus 140 on top of that?
Right. And you think about game 3, he didn't even play the fourth quarter, and he had 96 yards receiving. So, like,
especially after we saw, like, Tet McMillan went over 100, Pearsall went over 100, and so, and I don't remember how the Saints did, but Olave
Jawan Johnson's the one that kind of killed them from that standpoint. So I mean, I think you've nailed it, right? You take the over 84.5 on FanDuel. I don't know what it is on BetMGM.
80.5. It's only 80.5.
So take that. You can get 90 plus at plus 104, and then what's your plus 100 plus?
It's plus 140.
Okay, so that's where you go to FanDuel plus 154. Like, ladder that thing up, take them all. Until somebody stops him. I think you got to play it. It's one of those, you come back to it every week. Now, the other one that I like is Trey Benson. And I said, don't touch his receiving or his rushing yards, but his total receptions is 3.5. We've seen.
I think we're going to get more. And I wish DeMercado was listed on here, because DeMercado is going to. Now, I will say, because they do they were using Connor so that might be a good play. Like, it's.
Yeah.
Oh, do you get plus odds on over 3.5? Because it's plus 105 for over 3.5 receptions.
So that's a little better there. It's minus 102 here. So yeah, I would go with that. I like that bet though, man. Again, I just think that they're going to be focused on getting the ball out quick. You've got a really good aggressive defense. They're going to try to be conservative. Over 3.5 I like that. I wouldn't ladder it by any means, but I like that. And then you mentioned DeMercado. He doesn't have any receiving props, but he does have over 14.5 yards rushing. That's one to watch for me, because
it's only, now granted, it's over 12.5 for BetMGM, but it's minus 135, so it's not that great.
Yeah, but it's just,
and that he's good for 2 draw plays on 3rd and long, and that'll get him.
Kind of been my thought process on that, is like, oh, okay. The other one that is interesting to me, because Pittsburgh, again, I hate going back to this, their defense isn't what it used to be. And then we saw New Orleans defense. Sam Darnold over 7.5 yards rushing. He's still mobile. The difference being that when he does scramble, it's to typically throw deep. So that'll be something to watch, because that's a tough one. But I do like his over 7.5 yards rushing in this one, because I do think the Cardinals pass rush, especially if the game is close, that they're gonna continue to go after him in this one.
I like Sam Darnold over half an interception for even money.
Yeah,
At plus 100.
I don't hate that at all, man. He, like I said, he takes chances with the ball. The Cardinals have done a really, really nice job this year. Let's see what it is. Yeah, it's better where you're at. Mine's minus 113, so even money's way better.
Then I don't love the passing props.
No,
Other than
I'd stay
that,
away from them. I'd stay away
and the
from
kicking
passing
props are
props.
no good this week. The kicking props are no good this week. They're just fine. It's minus 105 for Ryland over 1.5 field goals.
I think
So
they caught on.
that's fine.
I think they caught on to us, Jess.
Well, right, like the props that we had like last time. I said take both the kickers, on 2+, and they hit. What was it? Kyler's rushing yards hit.
Yep.
And I think I had Trey McBride on anytime touchdown too.
And by the way, we were severely limited on what we could bet last week. So this week, outside of the Seahawks rushing props, which again I would just stay away from, man. Like I genuinely wouldn't even bet outside of the Darnold one because I think he's going to be under some pressure this week. I would stay away from their rushing game because again, it's been one game that they've looked okay. That's why I genuinely just don't know how their passing offense works without any viable run game whatsoever.
Yeah. Anything else? What about touchdown scores? Do you like any of the anytime touchdowns?
No, because I have no idea who's going to score in this game. I guess the safest one is probably Kenneth Walker, right?
Yeah, but here's my big value one. I think it's Greg Dortch at plus 1,100. I wish that's one on the receiving props to watch. If you see him pop up on receptions made, I would bet it might be 1.5 or 2.5. And since he's going to be number 3, Kyler loves throwing the ball to him. Depending on what the odds are, I'd take over. Like if it shows up at 1.5 or 2.5, I'd take that. But if you're talking just anytime touchdown for some value, Greg Dortch at plus 1,100 I like that one. And at the same time, Elijah Higgins at plus 2,000, a guy who viably could get an end zone target. Could get you could pay off. You could hit big on that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that one. The other one that's interesting to me is Eric Sauerbert, the like third tight end, or maybe even fourth tight end. The reason I say that is, and I know it's a different regime, but the Seahawks always do something weird in the red zone, and it's always like a Jake Bobo. Or who is the?
You could get Sauber to Bobo plus 2,500, man.
Right, like, and so Bobo has no targets this year, so that's why I would stay away from that. But like, I'm trying to remember who was the guy a couple years ago.
Bisley had a couple of scores against them, I think.
Bisley is one, and then Bobo had a couple scores against them. I remember. Oh, Colby Parkinson. That's who it was.
Yeah.
And so it's always like, oh man, how do these guys score? And so that's and Parkinson might have been with the Rams. I don't remember who it was with, but yeah, like those like third tight ends, those blocking tight ends, those nobody receivers, like that they always kill the Cardinals for some reason in this matchup.
And with that, we'll wrap up this edition of the Rise of Seahawks podcast, Best Hour of Cardinals Talk. This is episode 702. It's our Cardinals-Seahawks preview. We have one more show this week I'll record with Cole Musgrove of Seahawks Wire. So you got 3 shows. We're kind of right in a row. They're packed together. There's not going to be much time between them because, hey, we got a game on Thursday. Then you're going to have to wait for next week so we can talk about that. So until then, that's Seth Cox. I'm Jess Root. Thanks for listening. As always, we will be back again soon.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up, See Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise up, Red Sea, be red, see red, and of course, Rise Up, See Red.